Hey guys, Joe Pals here. As we continue to wait for news of the next Persona title, Persona 6, and as Persona 4 gets its own remake, the question from fans has come up time and time again. When can we get a remake of Persona 1 and the Persona 2s? The PSP port of Persona 1 came out all the way back in 2009, with Persona 2 PSP ports following in 2011 and 2012. With caveats we'll go over a different time. Being the most archaic of the bunch, I'm mostly interested in Persona 1 when it comes to this question, and how on earth one can go about modernizing it. What I'm going to do is go piece by piece here, from what I think are the core elements of a modern-day Persona game, tackling how I think these elements can or can't be adapted for this ancient title. Without further ado, let's get started with trying to bring Persona 1 into the modern day. The biggest addition to the Persona formula that might be the hardest to adapt over, social links and stats first appeared in Persona 3, letting you know just how important the power of friendship was and just how popular you need to be in order to hang out with Akihiko and Portable. This mechanic is fully centered around another addition of the formula from Persona 3, the calendar system. This simple addition dictates when people will be available, when you have to go to school, when certain events take place, the whole 9 yards. Even with modifications, this part right here is probably the most untransferable to Persona 1. For those who haven't seen my retrospective video, I'm going to remain as spoiler-free as possible, but the way Persona 1's plot is structured makes implementing a calendar system an incredibly arduous task at best. Like, sure, you can argue for Persona 2 being on a limited schedule during July 1999 as an even more succinct version of a calendar system Metaphor ReFantazio runs on, but Persona 1 reality hops so much that trying to keep track of the days of a week is almost impossible. The best bet for anything close would probably be to use the downtime between dungeons to learn more about the cast. Kind of like how when you're in the break rooms or general town areas, you can interact with your party and the NPCs in the room for some quick dialogue in the current versions of Persona 1. You could maybe tie that to Velvet Room progress by having each party member require a specific persona to be in your arsenal in order to initiate the conversation, as to still have some progress barriers since social stats are pretty much a no-can-do in this setting? Maybe? The whole main appeal of modern Persona is probably going to be specifically Persona 1's biggest hurdle. One that can be cleared, but not without some caveats, I feel. Another big differentiating point between old Sona and new Sona? The lack of a compendium. Now, with Persona 1, I do want to keep the spell card system in play as to make sure one of its core tenets stays intact, down to the gemstones and totems. With that said, I do think that the ability to resummon personas would be quite nice, especially if a rank system is still in place, that way you can grind for gear much easier than what you have to do currently. I.e., raise a bunch of personas then release them once they hit max rank, a task that's rather inconvenient, even if you're using the grind under Mikage Ruins. The simplest way to balance this would probably be to have the ability to buy a persona at a specific rank, so long as you've already reached that rank with said persona, with the game charging a lot more should you want a higher rank. To put it in practical terms, since I know I just said rank a lot, let's take a max rank Jack Frost that's sitting in the compendium. If you want to summon it at max rank, that's fine, but in this example it's going to cost you 10,000 yen. If you want to summon it at rank 4 instead though, 3,500 yen. Velvet Room summoning aside and back to the fusion materials, the spell cards. I'd absolutely take the Persona 2 approach here and just give everyone one contact method each. There's no reason to have 36 different dialogue options across the 9 total party members, especially when some options are duplicated, such as Persuade and Sing. To keep those other options and expand on them though, the best bet would probably be to allow a bunch of different pieces of dialogue to come up when you select contact for each party member, and even toss in group contact, much like for Persona 2 titles. The goal with this whole bit between the Velvet Room and contact is just to simplify things, while also accentuating what's left. I'll keep this section relatively brief since I already went over the 2 existing Persona 1 OSTs in another video, but when it comes to the soundtrack, of course the re-release would have a new one complete with some remixes. With that said, we absolutely want the option to hear both the PS1 and PSP soundtracks as to not alienate anyone, the same way the PSP release did. Much like how Persona 5 Strikers has in its options to hear specific songs in combat, what I do is take that option and expand on it. First, a general setting that would set the entire game to a specific soundtrack: PS1, PSP, and whatever name you want to give a remaster of Persona 1. After that, some settings to allow for customization to mix and match songs would be quite nice. You can keep it as simple as town themes, dungeons, character themes, that sort of thing, each with the previously described options. It's not perfect, but it's readable, and that's the main thing I'm going for here. Options that make sense for the player. So, clearly this look isn't going to work in the modern day, right? I'm not as against first-person dungeon crawling as some, I say as someone who still needs to play Persona Q as of writing this, but take and compare this to the dungeon crawling that's within Persona 5. Complete night and day difference. That said, making the dungeon layouts feel more intentional shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. While the dungeons are absolutely labyrinths in Persona 1, they are intentionally designed. So long as you throw in many twists and turns with something worthwhile down the incorrect pathways, translating this part shouldn't be that big of a hurdle. Perhaps the SMT Nocturne approach would be the way to go here when it comes to designing the dungeons? Food for thought. Also, of course, when it comes to combat, we have to add one mores in here, as well as the characters taking one turn at a time, as opposed to loading up at the start of a turn. Right? Get things more succinct with how they work today. And with that, I think that's everything that'll be needed to bring Persona 1 into the modern day. Persona 1's story is one that still hits today. A tale of self-discovery amidst self-loathing. A battle for control over oneself. As such, no changes or even additions are needed on that front, given that there's the whole Snow Queen quest. Just maybe hint at it a little harder at the start of the game? Same with Reiji? Maybe? Food for thought. Outside of that, the only changes you can really make are the ones that would come from remaking a game anyway. Updated graphics, expanded lines, voice acting for cutscenes, the whole 9 yards. If you were bringing Persona 1 into the modern day, and the Persona 2s for that matter, how would you do it? Let me know in the comments. Until then, my name is JoyPals, signing out. Up next, it's a challenge video. Take care, y'all.